You know what separates mentally strong people from everyone else? It is almost never something dramatic. It is not one defining moment of courage or one extraordinary decision. It is 10 small things done consistently, quietly, and without any expectation of recognition from anyone around them. Psychology has spent decades studying what genuinely strong minds do differently. The findings are not what most people expect. The differences are subtle, daily, and deeply habitual. This video names exactly what those differences are so you can see them clearly for the first time. The first thing mentally strong people do is feel the full weight of a situation before responding to it. Most people react immediately. They respond from the first feeling that arrives, before a second or third or clearer feeling has had time to surface. Strong people pause long enough to feel all of it. Research on emotional granularity from psychologist Lisa Feldman Barrett at Northeastern University found that individuals who can identify and distinguish between specific emotional states make significantly better decisions under pressure than those who experience emotion as a general, undifferentiated surge. Feeling precisely is not weakness. It is one of the most sophisticated cognitive tools available to a human mind. The second thing they do is choose their environment deliberately and without apology. They are aware that who surround them, where they spend their time, and what they consistently expose their attention to is not neutral background. It is active input that shapes the quality of their thinking and the direction of their life. Research on social contagion from Nicholas Christakis at Yale University found that behaviors, emotional states, and even cognitive patterns spread through social networks with measurable predictability. Mentally strong people are not antisocial. They are precise. They understand that environment is not something that happens to you. It is something you can choose, and that choice compounds over time. The third thing they do is take full ownership of outcomes without needing the circumstances to have been favorable. When something fails, they do not spend time cataloging external factors that contributed. They ask what they could have done differently. That question is not self-punishment. It is the most direct path back to agency. Research on personal agency and recovery from psychologist Albert Bandura at Stanford University found that individuals with high self-efficacy, the genuine belief that their actions determine their outcomes, recover from setbacks significantly faster and attempt more challenging goals than those who attribute outcomes primarily to external forces. Ownership is not blame. It is the fastest available route back to power. The fourth thing they do is set limits on what they will accept from other people and hold those limits even when holding them is socially uncomfortable. Most people set limits in their minds and abandon them the moment maintaining them requires an actual difficult conversation. Strong people hold the limit precisely at the moment of greatest pressure. Research on boundary setting and psychological well-being from the Journal of Social and Clinical Psychology found that individuals who maintain consistent interpersonal limits report lower rates of resentment, higher relationship satisfaction, and significantly reduced chronic stress. The limit is not the act of saying no. The limit is the willingness to say no again when the first no is tested. And it always gets tested. The fifth thing they do is compare themselves only to who they were previously, not to colleagues, not to peers, not to the carefully edited versions of other people's lives that appear on screens. Their only relevant benchmark is whether they are moving in the direction they have chosen relative to where they started. Research on social comparison theory from Leon Festinger found that upward social comparison, measuring yourself against those perceived to be doing better, consistently produces anxiety, reduced motivation, and distorted self-assessment. Mentally strong people have not eliminated the comparative impulse. They have redirected it toward the only comparison that actually generates useful information, themselves over time. The sixth thing they do is sit with discomfort long enough to understand what it is actually communicating. Most people treat discomfort as a signal to stop, escape, or change course immediately. Strong people treat it as a signal to pay closer attention. They ask what the discomfort is pointing toward before they decide what to do about it. Neuroscience research on interoception, the brain's capacity to read internal body states, from psychologist Antonio Damasio found that individuals who accurately interpret physical discomfort signals demonstrate significantly better decision-making in ambiguous situations. Discomfort is information. The person who can read it clearly has access to data that the person who immediately escapes it will never receive. Now, consider this for a moment. Think of the last time you felt genuinely uncomfortable and immediately reached for something to relieve it. A phone, food, a conversation that was not really necessary. What if the discomfort was trying to tell you something important that you interrupted before it could finish speaking? The seventh thing they do is maintain their commitments to themselves with the same reliability they would bring to commitments made to people they respect. A promise made to yourself in a quiet moment is treated as binding, not flexible, not conditional on mood, as binding as any promise that carries external consequence. Research on self-concept and behavioral consistency from Jennifer Campbell at the University of British Columbia found that individuals with high self-concept clarity, a stable and coherent internal sense of who they are, demonstrate far greater consistency between stated intentions and actual behavior. The mentally strong person has built a relationship with themselves that functions like accountability. It does not require an outside witness to remain real. The eighth thing they do is actively seek out information that challenges what they already believe. Most people experience contradictory information as a threat and respond by defending their existing position more firmly. Mentally strong people experience it as an opportunity. They genuinely want to know if they are wrong. Research on intellectual humility from Mark Leary at Duke University found that individuals who welcome belief-challenging information show stronger long-term decision quality, more accurate self-assessment, and greater adaptability in rapidly changing conditions. Certainty feels safe, but the person who can tolerate uncertainty about what they believe will always understand more than the person who cannot. The ninth thing they do is let people be disappointed in them without treating that disappointment as evidence that a wrong choice was made. They care about people deeply, but they have separated caring about someone from requiring that person's approval. Those two things can coexist in the same relationship without either one destroying the other. Research on approval motivation from Edward Deci and Richard Ryan's self-determination theory found that individuals who make decisions primarily to avoid disappointing others show lower psychological well-being, reduced authentic functioning, and greater vulnerability to manipulation over time. Managing other people's emotions for them is not kindness. It is the slow erosion of your own capacity to make genuine choices about your own life. The 10th thing they do is the one that makes all the other 9 possible. They return to themselves after every deviation, after every loss, after every period where the habit slipped and the direction blurred and everything felt further away than it should. They do not require a perfect record. They require the ability to return, and they always return. Research on behavioral self-regulation from Roy Baumeister at Florida State University found that the critical variable in long-term habit maintenance is not consistency, but recovery speed. How quickly you return after falling off is a stronger predictor of long-term success than how rarely you fall off. Mentally strong people fall. The difference is entirely in what they do immediately after landing. Now, consider this for a moment. Every one of these 10 things is a choice, not a talent, not a temperament, not something you either have by nature or spend your life without. Each one was chosen by someone who did not feel particularly strong in the moment of choosing it. That is the part that never gets shown. Behind every one of these behaviors is a person who was tired, who was uncertain, who had a completely available and socially acceptable reason to do the easier thing instead. The mental strength is not in the absence of that temptation. It is in what was chosen while the temptation was fully present and clearly visible. What psychology keeps returning to is that strength is not a state you achieve and then maintain effortlessly. It is a practice, a daily imperfect, sometimes exhausting practice of choosing the behavior that aligns with who you are trying to become rather than who the easiest version of the moment would allow you to be. The person who holds a difficult limit for the first time is practicing. The person who sits with discomfort instead of escaping it is practicing. The person who returns to their commitments after a week of ignoring them is practicing. All of it counts. None of it is wasted. The practice is the strength. There is something else worth naming. The 10 things described in this video are not performed by people who have everything figured out. They are performed by people who have simply decided that figuring it out matters more than appearing to have already figured it out. That decision is where every version of genuine strength begins. What is rare about mentally strong people is not the individual actions. Any single one of these behaviors could be imitated on a single occasion by almost anyone. What is rare is the consistency, the return, the choosing again on an ordinary Wednesday with nothing at stake and no one watching and no particular inspiration available. Think back to where we began. The assumption that what separates mentally strong people is something large and visible. Something that would be obvious in a first impression or apparent in a single conversation. That assumption misses the entire point. The gap is built in the spaces between the big moments, in the 10 quiet daily things that compound silently over a lifetime. Mental strength is not a destination. It is a direction. And what separates the people who find it from the people who keep looking for it is simply this. The strong ones stopped waiting to feel ready and started practicing before they were. Every day, in the small things, in the quiet things, in the 10 things that nobody else ever sees.